I'm Mark,
And I'm Sharon.
and
We
we
are
are
Ponderosa
Ponderosa
Garden
Garden Adventures.
Adventures. So today we wanted to kind of recap our season. I think it's really important to reflect at the end of the season when everything's still fresh in our mind. What were the successes, the fails, the challenges, and what things we want to plan for next year?
So, our main takeaway from this season is we got a late start due to a long, wet winter and a sudden frost in the middle of February that killed off all the starts. We tried to start indoors in the greenhouse during the rains. So, that kind of limited what we were able to accomplish. And on the other hand, we had some really spectacular successes in other ways because of all the
All
rain
the
and all the
rain.
water. Yeah. So to recap, I think our successes starts with the flowers, the wildflowers and roses and our bulbs.
It was a spectacular show this season. This is the first season that Windsor has really had such a variety of flowers in it. I get chamomile that comes back every year. There's dianthus in there and various other things. But I planted some wildflower mix in there and it was just gorgeous. I had my sweet peas that finally I was successful with, and they were just absolutely glorious. We had California poppies, just a variety of color, and it was just magnificent.
And I threw a few handfuls of wildflower seeds into the 4x4 um, planter, and they just burst into this huge array up to about 4 feet high. We had bachelor
Bachelor buttons
buttons.
that were in these fantastic colors.
We had calendulas that were just going crazy, covered with bees. Lots and lots of pollinators around this year.
Mhm.
Another big success is we planted some Princess Charlene roses, which we had been wanting to acquire for the longest
I've
time.
been trying, and I was really trying to get a hold of some, and did one plant through mail order and then pre-ordered through our local nursery, and we have three now, and they're fantastic. I just can't rave about them enough.
We had spectacular success. As you can see, this one is about 4 or 5 feet tall. And we just planted that back in January. And the story is, year after year, we had gone to the nursery to buy a Princess Charlene, and it's the first rose to sell out every year. It's
Right.
their most popular rose of that.
I had seen one that I really am like, oh, that's pretty. And I didn't buy it right then, right? Second lesson learned, if you see it and you love it, buy it. It won't be there when you go back. And so I've been questing after it ever since. And we're very happy to have them in the garden.
So we put some orders in this year and had them hold a few for us, and we've just had great success with this. And then
Bulbs.
we had bulbs. We took the time, if you watched our video at the start of the season, we planted lots of bulbs. We had big success. I planted a bulb lasagna, which I don't know if we ever did a video on, but we'll show
Here
you.
in the backyard in a container, and then in the front yard we plant around. We have a bird bath and we have our circular garden, and every year we plant bulbs in there, and it was just a lovely show this year. So the colors were amazing.
And then our old standbys, the perennials, we have hibiscus, we have potato bushes.
I
Oh,
have
yeah.
multiple lavender varieties, and what I call the Rivica flower, which is my granddaughter's name because it's an Arizona sun blanket flower, and she's from Arizona, and so those have just been fantastic. So all in all, it was just the spring was just an explosion of color.
And then we have a big sky flower and a butterfly bush out front, which attracts lots of butterflies for our videos. And we have lavender and sage around the garden. The sage, especially the purple sage, attracts lots and lots of pollinators. So we just leave those and let those kind of go
The
crazy.
hummingbirds love them, the bees. I mean,
Yeah.
you know your garden is successful when you are seeing the birds and the bees and the worms and the praying mantis and all of the different part of the ecosystem that's there. You know you're doing something right when all of those things are in place.
But we don't want to see grubs. And grubs was
No.
one of our biggest
Oh,
issues in the past few years. Although we didn't know it. We thought we had a problem
with
with
moles,
moles. But it
right?
turned out what was attracting the moles.
Was the grubs.
And so at the beginning of the season, we took some action. We applied beneficial nematodes.
Right. We have a video on that.
And we have a video on that. And as you can see, well, you can't quite see it right
Can't
behind us.
see it now.
Well, I'll post some photo or video of the of Provence, the planter that we applied it to, and we have tomato bushes that are growing way outside.
It's a
the
single
planter.
tomato bush that filled a 4 by 6 foot planter. Now there's a couple little peppers in the corner and some basil, but primarily it is a tomato planter.
Is it a San Marzano? Is it
no, it's actually a Juliet,
Juliet
tomato.
So so what we had noticed in the past is we would plant things that would grow quickly and we'd have success, and then they suddenly die off.
Yeah, you come out the next day and suddenly it's looking wilted and unhappy, and you go to check and there's no roots
Hardly
left.
any roots. So that was the grubs. So that was a lesson learned this season that we will probably repeat next year.
Yeah.
All right. What else?
The pumpkins. Let's talk about the pumpkins and our back garden, which has our melons and our pumpkins and your asparagus and zucchinis and those. Let's talk about that section.
So we had some successes and some challenges back there. Our biggest challenge, of course, was the pumpkins. Sorry to say we didn't get any pumpkins this year, and we have in the past. We've had some really good crops. And the main problem is the pumpkin starts, and even before they got started, the seeds kept getting dug up and eaten. And I even tried putting some chicken wire over it, and the chicken wire got lifted up. So we suspect it was either raccoons or rats or something that can...
A critter.
Yeah, a critter, definitely. You could see where they dug in, and I did this time after time. I planted 3 or 4 different... I used up all our pumpkin seeds. Ever hopeful. And they would come up, and then finally the last few died out in September. I realized it was too late to get any.
They wouldn't be big enough.
Yeah, so no pumpkins this year. Because we love this time of the year. It's really fun. It's November to have. It's really fun to have pumpkins.
Yeah, we've had great success in the past. In fact, we typically also do them in the front yard, and we had lots of projects going on here at the place this year that were not garden related, that took some of our gardening time away, and so were really kind of split in what we were working on, and we couldn't give the attention in every area we wanted to as much as we needed. So next year, definitely pumpkins in the front, and we'll come up with some way to protect those seeds and seedlings.
All right. So again, as I mentioned, we got a late start. So some of the other crops that we planted, such as cantaloupe and butternut squash, we're only getting a tiny little bit of fruit off of it. We got 1 cantaloupe. It was just shy of a pound, 15.5 ounces. I'll show you.
It's delicious.
Little video. We tried it. It was just enough for 2 servings. It was really delicious, very delicious. It was a Sierra Gold, so a little more flavor than the Hale. It looks like a Hale, but it tastes a little more like a Tuscany. Tuscan is my favorite melon, and we didn't get any of those. We ran out of those seeds. So I'm definitely going to plant cantaloupe next year, but get an earlier start.
Yeah,
I didn't.
We can hope that the rain is not as heavy as it was this year. Typically here we get a false spring in February, so we get an early start on our seedlings, and we hit the ground running. And this time it was just such a late start that we really just couldn't get. It was too hot to get some of these seedlings going and established when they really needed to be.
Yeah, so we put these starts, to give you a frame of reference, we put the starts in for the cantaloupe and the butternut squash in July, middle of July. So they had about 6 weeks to develop, and we only got a few small fruit. The butternut squash are about smaller than a pear. I'll show you the video here what that looks like. So next year is just get them in the ground earlier, starting seeds indoors or in a greenhouse.
In the greenhouse, yeah. I think we didn't we did. We utilized the greenhouse. We started early in that February time frame, and then we not only got all the rain, we had heat spells in there that the seedlings just couldn't handle, and so we'll just have to be paying much closer attention if our weather is not being cooperative. Speaking of fruits, I wanted to talk a little bit about, we have several fruit trees. We don't call it an orchard because we have them spread out on the property, but we had a fantastic crop from our peach tree in front. We have a desert gold, and those were fantastic. We had the first real big harvest from our plum tree. We have a burgundy plum, and we've had, you know, a handful of plums each year, but it's 4 years now, 4 years old, and they were fantastic. And they were just, every time we thought we were done with plums, we found more inside. So that was great. We planted a pear tree this year, and first year, and we didn't expect anything from it. And there was one single pear, and it was
I'll show you
delicious.
a photo of that. Just a really nice full-size pear and
Right,
delicious.
right. And of course, we
So
had our grapes. We did that whole grapevine story and explained our whole process with that. And we definitely will concentrate on that next year.
yeah, I'd say the plums was the biggest accomplishment for the year. Now, last year we had lots and lots of plums, and they were just getting started. They were tiny. They were size of little peppercorns, and I even took photographs of them, and they were real teeny tiny. And I went out the next day, and they were all gone. Some birds or something had come and eaten literally
Really?
hundreds of these. So this year, as soon as I saw those little tiny size of a pea plums out there, I threw some bird netting over the entire
Right.
tree. So that was our lesson learned from last year, and that worked. As Sharon said, they started in June, and it would just drop 4 or 5 plums a day, just enough
Yeah.
for a few servings, and it went throughout July. And they were delicious, they were
Juicy.
juicy, they were flavorful, and a thin skin, not a really thick, bitter skin, and just really what we love. We both
Right.
love plums.
We both had this variety as kids, and it's the one
Exactly.
we remembered, with the dark burgundy skin inside and super sweet and juicy. And so we're thrilled that we're finally getting enough to actually sustain us through the summer.
Yeah, so that was a big success, and we're very happy about that. Another big success was I got my first pineapple out of the pineapple orchard that I planted 3 years
That we
ago.
harvested. Now, these pineapples were grown from just the tops of pineapples we bought in the store. And we've got, I don't know if we published that video.
I
I
haven't
think
shown
we've,
you that video, but I will show you that video. And a warning to my sister Michelle, who's allergic. Yes, we have a video on pineapples coming up. Another crop that we've had success with before, but I had a bumper crop this year, was peas. And that's because usually what happens with peas is we get some warm weather like in the 80s somewhere in February or March, and then they die out and whatever peas are on there. This year we had steady cool weather all the way through spring, and so we had such a big harvest that we had actually had enough peas for Easter dinner with
Mhm.
a full bowl of peas, enough for everybody at the table. Maybe I have some video, some photos of that. I'll put those up there.
One fail that was kind of sad is here in Zone 10B, we are able to grow a lot of tropical plants. As you can probably see around us, we're up here on our patio today. And we had plumeria plants. We've got a few different ones. We've got a planter that has three plants in there we haven't split up yet. And then we each had, together, we had each gotten a plumeria plant, and we'd been waiting and waiting for it to blossom. It was getting bigger. They were both doing very well, leafed up and everything. And we moved them from the patio out to the yard this year, and they were very, very happy. What we didn't do again was pay very close attention to our frost. We didn't get them up and protected soon enough, and both of those older plumerias, it didn't make it. And so we've moved the triple plumeria up here on the patio with us, so we
Okay,
can,
right behind us right here. I
yeah,
don't
so
think
we
you can
can,
see it in the camera, but
yeah, but
and it's looking okay. They've got some new growth on it, and we need to split those off. So we'll definitely make a video. We've never split off plumerias before, but
we'll do
this
that.
winter when they're dormant, we're
Yeah,
going to we'll split them off,
right,
and also some have multiple branches that could be split off.
right. So
So, back to like some other success. Something we had mixed success, I would say, is we had tomatoes, which we got lots of, as we were talking about, the Juliet tomatoes. And I had something called a Beef Master, which produced a lot of really good tomatoes. Now, one thing we had a problem with in the past was blossom end rot, and we took action this year. We made sure that we had irrigation throughout the season,
right,
got that put in at the beginning, and also regular fertilization
right.
of the vegetables. So the problem was that it turns out the Beef Master is a determinate tomato, which means once I got the first harvest, they were done. It wasn't producing
Right,
throughout
wasn't
the
the first
season.
harvest, it was the harvest.
Yeah, so
Right,
in next year I will do some succession planting and probably plant 2 or 3 tomatoes so I can get tomatoes throughout the season.
Right. I think one thing we did do right with the tomatoes this year, we were very deliberate. We get excited every year, like I'm sure you guys do, and we get excited and plant lots of different varieties of tomatoes, and I want to try this one and that one. And we very intentionally scaled back our tomato propagation. So we have some grape tomatoes, some Roma tomatoes, some Beefmaster, the Juliet, and some cherry tomatoes. And it was just the right amount. We didn't end up with, bowls full that we're trying to give to neighbors and friends and all the rest of that. But we had enough for what we needed here. And it wasn't overwhelming with the maintenance, which is what happens because they grow very prolifically here. We get, as I said, my tomato monster, the Juliet, but it becomes a maintenance problem and it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to keep them trimmed and, look for those tomato hornworms and all the things that come with growing tomatoes. So I think that was successful in our paring back, and getting the water leveled out was also really important.
Right. So the growing of the tomatoes went great. We've got all the mechanics down. For next year, it's just the selection and the varieties that we grow. The other thing that we had bumper crop with is the peppers. We're going to do a separate video on that. But the hot peppers, especially the mild peppers too, but especially hot peppers, just went bananas. Apparently, it was just the right condition. So we'll talk about that in a separate video. But back to the melon patch, we did have success with the watermelons, and if you watch our video from a few weeks ago, you can see our first harvest of those. And I would point out, those were the first that we planted, so things we planted in the melon patch. We got those in May, so next year that's kind of our guideline. Get everything into the melon patch by May, and probably have a better harvest.
Right, and we did in the 2x2 as well. So my method of gardening is I like to combine my fruits and veg with my plants and get kind of a potager approach, but I also believe in not putting all your eggs in one basket in case something happens in one area. We have a backup, and so that worked for us as well.
And then finally, we got our first harvest of asparagus. And asparagus, I had planted these 3 years ago, 2020.
2020, right?
Yeah, 2020, beginning of 2020, I planted, I dug an asparagus bed. And it takes about 3 years. It takes 3 cycles for the plants to come out. Actually, I think I planted them in 2021. It was 2021.
Yes, that's right.
And then
21 season, 22
so they came up in 21, 2023 season was the third season. And they were about thick enough, about the size of my pinky. So thick enough to harvest. We got about a handful of stalks, about enough for about 2 servings. We planted 10 plants. I was hoping to get at least half of them, and 6 of them are still growing. So we've got 60% success. And so next year, I'm hoping for a nice big harvest, enough to have maybe 5 or 6 servings. But I was able to do a stir fry entirely from ingredients from our garden this summer. So that was another big accomplishment. So, anything else? I think that about wraps it up.
I think as far as looking forward to next season, we talked about our special project, and that is our potting area in the very back of our yard, an area that we call Paradiso, and there'll be more on that coming through the winter time. As I said, we had lots of things going on around the house this spring and summer, and we just weren't able to get that completed. But we're continuing work on that, and so you'll see more of that to come. And I'm looking forward to advancing that and really just kind of expanding the areas of the yard that we're utilizing. And I'm looking forward to that in 2024.
I think one of the big successes we had this year was we were right on top of the irrigation. We had our irrigation system set up right from the beginning and got out there early, making repairs and having it running. One thing that we wanted to do that we weren't able to accomplish was to extend that system further into the front yard and also back to the melon patch. So that's going to be probably a priority project next year, is to get irrigation extended to all of the
growing
areas of a garden, and to keep it maintained, because we noticed the areas that had regular irrigation from the beginning, we had the most success. That's in zone 10.
Consistency.
Yeah, and here in zone 10B, That is one of the most important issues, is consistency of irrigation, because we have long, hot, dry spells, and especially plants that are in planters or pots, they're just not going to survive that if they don't have regular daily watering. So lessons learned and applied for
Right.
next year.
And exciting things coming up.
At the end of the season, we like to look back and look at what went well and what we could do better. And overall this year, I think we've had a good season, and we're set to head into next season.
I would encourage all of you to go out once a month, pick a day, the first of the month, the last of the month, and just take some video, even if it's with your phone, of your garden, so that you can see the changes and help spur your memory of, you know, what you learned in the season that you want to remember to do. Oh, that's right, I need to start that sooner, or I need to get the mulch down early, or whatever it may be. It's really, really helpful.
It's been really fun going through the footage for this video. And it is easy to get caught up in the heat of the battle and forget to just literally
Appreciate the progress.
Stop and smell the roses and appreciate what you've created. So absolutely, I agree 100%. Take photos, make videos of your garden throughout the season. You can go back and look and see what you've just said. You know, what's worked and what hasn't. But especially because with gardening, inevitably things are not going to work out. It's always a good idea to go back and remind yourself of your successes and focus on those successes.
Right.
And don't worry about the failures.
Right. Because to be a gardener is to be hopeful, right? We plant seeds and have faith that they're going to sprout and grow. And so, you know, I think most of us that garden have that in us. And so it's important to go back and remind ourselves of those successes we did have.
I think that's a great note to end on.
Well, thanks for joining us today. We hope you found it entertaining. We're glad you came along with us. We hope you came along with us for the season. If you didn't, hit that subscribe button. We'll show up in your regular recommended videos. And if you hit that notification bell, they'll send you a notification when we post a new video. Share with friends. And we'd appreciate if you hit that thumbs up button. It helps us grow the channel. We really enjoy bringing these videos to you. And we want to continue.
And leave us a comment below. Let us know what worked in your garden or what didn't work in your zone. We're looking forward to seeing you next season. Thanks for joining us here at Ponderosa Garden Investors.
See you next time.